Hey guys, tonight we drift back in time, not to a palace or battlefield, but to a humid Caribbean port in the late 1600s. You squint against the morning sun as your boots thud onto splintered docks. The air is thick with the scent of salt, spice, and something sweet. Sweet and a little strange. Your eyes follow a local vendor pushing a wooden cart wobbling with golden, spiked fruit. Pineapples, stacked high, their ruffled crowns wobbling like circus hats, draw everyone's gaze. You pause beside them. One's been sliced open, flesh glistening in the heat, swarmed by flies as big as thumbtacks. The juice is sticky and faintly acidic, already darkening the wooden cart beneath. A sailor beside you mutters, "That thing's worth more than my sword," before promptly stealing a bite when the vendor's back is turned. This isn't just fruit, it's prestige, luxury, a spiny symbol of faraway power. And yet, here in the pirate-infested tropics, it's also somehow everywhere. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love reading that. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk farther along the docks, past barrels of molasses and bolts of damp canvas. The market's a patchwork of tarps and crates, with vendors hawking things that seem familiar: rum, tobacco, dried fish, and things that most definitely don't. Turtles the size of wagon wheels. Spices that smell like flaming cinnamon. And in the center of it all, pineapples. Piled like cannonballs. Decorated in front of inns. Carved into crests on signs swinging over tavern doors. Even here, among hardened pirates, everyone seems entranced by this strange fruit. You spot one grizzled man using it as a doorstop. Another balances one on his head while staggering home from the rum tent. And yet another is cradling one like a baby. You chuckle. Then you wonder, why? The pineapple, you discover, isn't just edible, it's aspirational. In the cold stone mansions of England and France, nobles pay enormous sums to get their hands on a single specimen. There are rumors of lords bankrupting themselves just to display a pineapple at a dinner party, never cutting it, never tasting it, just placing it like a gold nugget on the table. One noble supposedly had his staff pass around a pineapple on a silver tray while guests clapped politely. Meanwhile, here you are, in a sweaty port filled with rogues, and the things are being juggled by shirtless pirates and carved into the keels of smuggling ships. One captain reportedly painted his hull bright yellow and green to mimic the pattern of a pineapple skin. Another named his sloop the Golden Fruit and refused to eat anything that wasn't cooked with pineapple juice, including hardtack, which is a choice no one recommends. You duck into a tavern to escape the heat. Inside, it's slightly cooler, though the air smells like old grog and wet leather. A table near the bar has a carved pineapple centerpiece that's been mostly eaten by rats. The barkeep catches your glance and shrugs, "Symbol of hospitality," he says, then slaps a mug in front of you and adds, "and worm bait." Historians still argue whether pirates adopted the pineapple purely because of its rarity, or whether its sweet and sour flavor mirrored their own salty, sunburnt lifestyles. Was it just an easy-to-recognize symbol of tropical conquest? Or something deeper, maybe even a protest, a mockery of the European elite's obsession? You sip your drink, some ghastly mix of rum and fruit peel, and settle into the wooden bench. Stories flow as easily as the liquor. One man claims his captain once fought a duel over the last pineapple slice aboard ship. Another insists pineapples cure seasickness, heartbreak, and toe fungus, but not necessarily in that order. And yet, despite the tall tales, something rings true. The fruit holds sway over this world. It's in the tattoos curling up sailors' arms, pineapples nestled between daggers and mermaids. It's burned into barrels and stitched onto faded flags. One pirate's ship bell was even shaped like a pineapple, although most say it sounded terrible. As the sun begins to lower outside, casting long, golden beams through the warped glass windows, You feel the sway of something bigger. This fruit isn't just a garnish on a tavern plate. It's a symbol of arrival, of success, of excess maybe. But for men and women who spend weeks at sea eating dried biscuit and salted pork, something sweet, juicy, and fresh is nothing short of a miracle. Back outside, the market begins to pack up. Pineapples are gathered gently, almost reverently, and wrapped in old cloth. A small boy licks a slice, his eyes closed like it's his birthday. You think of all the ports you'll visit next, Jamaica, Barbados, Havana, and you wonder, will pineapples follow you there too? You already know the answer. You wake the next morning in a creaky hammock, still swaying with the leftover rhythm of too much grog and too many half-true pirate tales. Your back protests the effort, but you swing your legs down and step into the heat. Already, the smell of roasting plantains and unwashed sailors drifts in from the port. A breeze carries something else, the faint scent of pineapple. It's almost taunting, like the memory of a dream you're not quite sure you had. You follow it past chickens squabbling in the dust and sailors haggling over gunpowder. A small shop, more a lean-to, really, has set out a single pineapple on a crate. The fruit glows in the morning sun, golden and smug. It's hard not to feel like it's staring at you. You lean in. The vendor, missing 2 front teeth and clearly unimpressed by your fascination, informs you that this one came all the way from Hispaniola. Took 3 men to guard it, he mutters. One nearly lost a toe. You nod solemnly, not sure if that's true, but somehow feeling like it should be. Back in Europe, you're told, pineapples are transported in special glass boxes, paraded through streets before being served to the highest bidder, or not served at all. Many are never eaten, just borrowed by the wealthy to impress guests. There are records of pineapples being rented by the hour. No, really. Some of the richest lords in London allegedly passed the same pineapple from dinner party to dinner party, like a glorified relay race of status. Here in the Caribbean, however, pineapples are not ornamental. They're currency. They're bribes. They're a sort of edible gold. One governor once paid an informant not in coins, but in pineapple slices served over ice, which, in this climate, is like serving diamonds on diamonds. You wander toward the docks, watching as a sloop arrives. From its deck, crates are unloaded, rum, linen, dried fish, and a single wooden box handled with absurd delicacy. Guards flank it. The ship's captain, sweating through his coat, opens it slowly for inspection. Inside, 4 pineapples, each wrapped in silk. One of them has a ribbon. You stifle a laugh, but the man beside you, a scarred old privateer with one eye and a parrot that won't stop repeating, "Don't touch the fruit," gives you a serious nod. "Those'll fund a whole voyage," he says. Maybe 2. You're not sure if he means through sale or sheer morale, but either way, you're beginning to believe him. Historians still argue whether the pineapple's value in the 17th century came more from scarcity or symbolism. Some say it was the fruit's exotic appearance, its armor-like skin and royal crown, that made it irresistible to a Europe obsessed with displays of power. Others suggest it was the taste, sweet, sharp, tropical, and completely unlike anything grown back home. A flavor that felt like biting into sunshine. Or possibly toothache, if overripe. Still, the pirate world has its own logic. On the high seas, where you might go weeks without fresh food, anything not soaked in salt or crawling with weevils feels like divine intervention. A pineapple is juicy. A pineapple hydrates. A pineapple makes your gums stop bleeding long enough to chew without crying. In a time when scurvy could take out half a crew before lunchtime, a fruit that contains vitamin C is practically medicine. You pass a group of sailors playing dice, the winner triumphantly biting into a pineapple wedge like it's a gold medal. You can almost hear it crunch, even over the bustle of the port. Sticky juice dribbles down his beard. No one mocks him. If anything, they look jealous. Later, aboard your ship, a battered beauty with patched sails and a figurehead shaped like a sneezing mermaid, you notice that the captain has a carved pineapple set into the handle of his pistol. It's smooth with age, worn down by years of storms, duels, and dramatic pointing. Pineapple, pineapple, pineapple. You're starting to wonder if there's a secret code here. A fruity lodestone pointing to something bigger. And you wouldn't be the only one. Some scholars believe pirates saw the pineapple as a kind of luck charm. Others say it was simply their way of mocking the upper classes. Oh, you'll pay a fortune just to look at this thing? We'll eat 5 before breakfast. There's even a theory that pirates used pineapples as an informal way station signal. Leave a fruit at a certain island cove, and it meant the path was safe, or perhaps unsafe, depending on which end was pointing up. Kind of like fruity Morse code if you squint. Your crewmates, meanwhile, have taken to carving little pineapples into the ship's woodwork. One is etched beside the helm. Another has replaced the dot in the captain's name on the hull. Someone even embroidered one onto a hammock, although the resemblance is questionable. As evening sets in, you sit beneath the mainsail, the salty wind tugging at your shirt, and chew slowly on a thin slice of the day's haul. It's warm, a little stringy, and maybe not worth its weight in gold, but you swear it tastes like victory. Or at least like not being bored. One of the younger sailors nudges you. Ever seen a pineapple with a face on it? He asks. You blink, thinking he's joking. Then he pulls one from a crate. Someone's scratched eyes and a grin into the skin. It's disturbingly charming. You laugh. He shrugs. Captain says it wards off sharks. The next few days are a blur of humidity, deck swabbing, and the faint, ever-present stickiness of pineapple juice somewhere on your fingers. It doesn't matter how many times you wash your hands, somehow, it lingers. Like the fruit's essence has decided to move in, rent-free. You're dozing under a sun-bleached tarp when the quartermaster stomps by, barking something about a resupply run. A moment later, you're sent ashore with 2 men, a pocket of Spanish reals and, curiously, a pineapple. Not for barter, you're told, but for charm. Keep it visible, says the quartermaster, and the merchant will give you the good coconuts. It's hard to argue with pirate logic, especially when it's so confidently delivered. You wander into the dusty market square where scents collide: mango, dried fish, wet gunpowder, and something that might be roasted iguana. You're barely 2 stalls in before a woman with a sun hat wider than a dinghy eyes your pineapple. Her expression goes from neutral to practically reverent. You looking to trade? She asks. You shake your head. No. Her disappointment is theatrical. You must be rich then. Her tone drips sarcasm, but there's no malice, just island humor. You laugh and keep moving, pineapple held like a priest might carry a relic. A vendor in a faded British naval coat sees it and immediately lowers his price on plantains. Another offers free sugarcane samples. One tries to buy the pineapple outright with a silver thimble and half a poem. You decline, but keep the poem. It's terrible. You kind of love it. Historians still argue whether islanders genuinely valued the pineapple itself, or whether they were simply responding to European obsession, mirroring the colonial hunger for status with their own tongue-in-cheek performance. Was it admiration? Irony? Strategic commerce? You suspect the answer is yes. You reach the port's far edge where the nicer stalls are, well, relatively nicer. One merchant has a table covered with conch shells, coral jewelry, and a pineapple sliced into perfect half rings, each placed atop a fresh palm leaf. You feel like you've stumbled into a fruit spa. He waves you over. A man came through last week, he says, paid me 5 doubloons for one of these rings. He chuckles. Didn't even eat it. Just sniffed it and walked away. You nod like that makes perfect sense. There's something performative about pineapples now. You start noticing them carved into wooden shutters, painted on tavern signs, sewn into flags. One brothel near the harbor has a sign that simply reads, "The Prickled Queen," with a sultry pineapple reclining on a velvet cushion. You don't go in, but you do tip your hat. On your way back to the ship, a boy runs up and asks if he can touch the pineapple. You oblige, and he presses one finger to it like it's a holy artifact. His eyes widen. It's real, he whispers. Then bolts. That night, as your ship creaks gently at anchor, you find the captain in his quarters, polishing, what else? A pineapple sculpture. It's made of ivory and probably smuggled. 17 raids, he says, voice low with pride. And not one scurvy death. He sets the sculpture down. You know what it really means, don't you? You shrug, unsure. Hospitality, he says. Back in England, they put it on gates. Means you're welcome. You blink. So, we're branding ourselves as welcoming pirates? He grins, gold tooth catching the lantern light. A contradiction that keeps M guessing. Later, alone on deck, you think about that, how something as absurdly shaped as a pineapple became shorthand for everything from menace to manners. Maybe it's the same logic that makes men wear powdered wigs in the tropics or name ships after ex-wives. There's an elegance in the absurdity. You glance at the fruit nestled beside you. It's slightly bruised now, probably from being admired too hard. You rest your hand on it gently, like one might with an old friend. The stars overhead flicker like candlelight on rum. One crewmate mutters in his sleep. Another snores like a cannon warming up. But you're just here with a pineapple, pondering whether history's strangest obsessions ever make any real sense, or whether they even need to. By now, you've stopped questioning why pirates and pineapples are inseparable in this floating fever dream of the 17th century. You're starting to accept it the way you accept that parrots sometimes swear in Portuguese or that a monkey once outranked you in the crew hierarchy. That was a rough month. This morning, the captain's in a mood, a contemplative one. He's chewing a piece of dried mango and staring out over the gunwale, muttering something about fruit diplomacy. You edge closer, mostly to escape the ship's cook who's loudly experimenting with pineapple rum stew. Do you know, the captain begins, not turning to look at you, that the Spanish tried to keep pineapples secret? You blink. Like, trade secrets? Worse, he says. Botanical espionage. And then he's off, unraveling a tale as salty and sweet as the fruit in question. Turns out, when Christopher Columbus stumbled upon the pineapple in Guadeloupe in 1493, he was so enchanted that he immediately shipped it back to Spain. A fruit that looked like a pine cone and tasted like honey? The court was giddy. But growing it outside the tropics proved tricky. For decades, Europeans obsessed over cultivating it themselves, particularly the Spanish and Portuguese. They failed, often spectacularly. So the pineapple stayed a Caribbean gem. Spain guarded access to it like it was buried treasure. Ships that left New World colonies with pineapples aboard were often monitored. Rival botanists were bribed or kidnapped. Plantation workers were forbidden from sharing growing techniques. Historians still argue whether the secrecy was about profit or prestige. Was Spain trying to monopolize tropical symbolism? Or did they genuinely believe pineapples would win diplomatic points at royal banquets? Either way, the pineapple became something forbidden, elusive, and dripping with cachet. You imagine a bored diplomat in Madrid, chewing a mealy apple, dreaming of forbidden fruit. By the time English and Dutch traders began infiltrating Caribbean routes, pineapples were currency. A single fruit in London could sell for the equivalent of thousands of today's dollars. Wealthy hosts would rent a pineapple just to display it at parties. People posed with it like a modern influencer with a sports car. Except this one went bad after 5 days and had to be eaten or tossed. Back on your ship, the quartermaster reads from a tattered Dutch journal describing a raid on a Spanish merchant vessel. They stole gold, rum, a violin, and 24 pineapples of exquisite freshness. The way it's phrased makes it sound more poetic than pillage. Why? As the ship sails further into British-held waters, you notice a pattern. Each time you dock, someone from the crew, sometimes the captain himself, deliberately carries a pineapple ashore. Not for eating, not for selling, but for showing. It's a symbol, sure. But of what? You try to get to the root of it. You start asking around. Bosun, it keeps the crew from mutinying. They think it's lucky. Sailing master, pirates love irony. A fruit that represents hospitality? Perfectly untrustworthy. Carpenter, it's got something to do with sugar. Or rum. Or bees. I forget. Eventually, you corner the ship's unofficial historian, a wiry man named Alphonse who once claimed he was educated at Oxford, though he says it with a smirk that suggests otherwise. He tells you the pineapple's symbolic weight wasn't invented by pirates, it was co-opted. And brilliantly so. Imagine this, he says, gesturing dramatically with a biscuit. You walk into a town as a feared pirate crew, but instead of sabers raised, you hold up a pineapple. People freeze. You're sending a message, but it's mixed. Are you dangerous? Rich? Friendly? Mad? You nod, chewing this over. Exactly, he says, satisfied. It's confusion as control. A psychological corset, if you will. Alphonse has a thing for metaphors. Later that night, you find a note tacked to the mainmast. It's written in charcoal and smells faintly of rum. It reads, "Tomorrow, we raid a fort. Bring the pineapple." You don't know whether that's a code or a literal instruction. Either way, the fruit's coming with you. You cradle the pineapple like it's made of porcelain or maybe dynamite. You're not entirely sure which is more accurate anymore. The next morning dawns sticky and sunblasted, the kind of heat that makes you question every life choice leading up to becoming the designated fruit bearer on a pirate raid. You dock near a crumbling colonial fort, somewhere along the coast of what today might be Belize or Honduras. Maps back then weren't exactly reliable, and yours has more sea serpent doodles than actual coordinates. The crew disembarks with a practiced rhythm, blades oiled, boots polished-ish, shirts unbuttoned just enough to look threatening but breezy. And there you are, right in the center of this chaotic procession, hoisting a perfectly ripe pineapple aloft like a tropical torch. The guards at the fort watch your approach with confusion and no small amount of amusement. Muskets are raised but not fired. And as you draw closer, you realize it's working. They're not sure whether to salute you or shoot you. The captain steps forward. "We're not here to fight," he says, tone syrupy. "We're here to trade. Perhaps, even share a bit of fruit." The pineapple is placed ceremoniously on a barrel between the two groups. Nobody breathes. Then, as if on cue, one of the guards breaks into a grin. "You brought a pineapple?" he says. You lads are either mad or rich. You don't bother to correct him. The fort's commander emerges. He's sun-leathered, missing 2 fingers, and walks with the limp of someone who's been kicked by both fate and mules. But he eyes the pineapple with something approaching reverence. Eventually, and with no small drama, he waves the guards down. "Let them in," he says. Inside, over a sweating pitcher of rum punch and a few carefully carved slices of pineapple, a fragile truce forms. No blood spilled. No muskets fired. Just sugar, citrus, and strategic confusion. Historians still argue whether pirates actually used fruit as a peace gesture, or whether this is one of those myths that grew legs because someone found it too amusing to fact-check. There's no hard proof, just fragmented ship logs and a few suspiciously fruity letters home. But you're starting to suspect the pineapple is less about peace and more about theater. That evening, you lean over the fort's low wall and look out at your ship. The crew has settled into a lull of dice games and half-naps. A few of them are arguing over who gets to lick the juice off the cutting knife. That's when Alphonse joins you again, this time holding a wrinkled parchment. "Want to see something strange?" he asks, already unrolling it. It's a botanical illustration. But not just any illustration. A detailed sketch of a pineapple, labeled in at least 3 languages, including Latin and something that might be badly translated Dutch. There are arrows pointing to the crown, notes on the fruit's shape, even speculative theories on its supposed medicinal properties. One note reads, "May cure melancholy if sniffed at sunrise." You stare. Is this real? Alphonse shrugs. Found it in a Portuguese captain's locker last year. He had 3 of them, all hand-drawn. Some scholars, he says with a mockingly posh accent, believed the pineapple could restore male vigor. Others thought it warded off scurvy. Some said it invited hallucinations if left to ferment. He rolls the parchment back up with a sigh. Basically, no one knew what it did. But everyone wanted it to do something. You laugh softly, surprising yourself. It's the kind of laugh that comes out when your brain is halfway to sleep, or when you've eaten too much sun. The conversation drifts, lazily, to the oddities pirates believe. The luck of never trimming your toenails at sea. The superstition that a goat aboard guarantees a storm. That dreaming of a mango means you'll find gold. And somewhere in this swirl of belief, the pineapple has taken root, not as food, not even as luxury, but as symbol. A fruit-shaped enigma. Back at sea, the pineapple is placed in a makeshift shrine near the helm, half joking, half sacred. The crew tips their hats to it. You're not sure if it's ironic or sincere. One night, the wind dies. The sails go slack. The sea becomes a mirror of black velvet, speckled with stars. Everyone gets restless. And the captain, in a move that surprises even him, slices a sliver from the pineapple and drops it into the water. For luck, he mutters. Historians still argue whether this counts as maritime sacrifice or just a waste of good fruit. You sit beside the helm and watch the slice bob once, twice, and then disappear. Whether it sinks or floats off, you never find out. But in the morning, the wind returns. The ship creaks back to life. The pineapple, though now slightly lopsided, remains at the helm. And no one questions it. You lean against the mast, salt-crusted shirt sticking to your back, watching a line of seagulls argue over a floating fish head. The breeze smells like tar and citrus, and you're not sure which part of the ship that's coming from. Below deck, there's a ruckus over the dwindling sugar rations, and someone's threatening to cook their boots again, just to teach them a lesson. But topside, everything's strangely calm. At the helm, the captain casually adjusts the course toward the next port, Port Royal, if the charts haven't lied again. You glance at the pineapple shrine. It's now decorated with a faded ribbon and a seashell necklace. Someone tucked a playing card behind its leafy crown, the Queen of Hearts. You suppose that's what happens when your crew runs out of tobacco and good sense. But you've started to notice something. Wherever you go, people react to the pineapple. Not always with awe, but always with interest. Dockworkers stop to gawk. Merchants nod respectfully. Even snooty colonial governors pause mid-insult to glance at the fruit as though it's quietly judging them. See, back in the 17th century, pineapples were more than fruit. They were visual shorthand for wealth, exoticism, and questionable trade practices. Think of them like an antique Ferrari, but stickier. Imported from the tropics, usually by accident, and nearly impossible to grow in Europe unless you had access to obscene amounts of glass, manure, and unpaid labor. And that's where the botanical drama begins. The Dutch were the first in Europe to try and tame the pineapple, building elaborate stove houses to simulate tropical heat. Entire estates were devoted to pineapple experimentation, with English aristocrats soon following. Some even commissioned oil paintings of the first homegrown fruit, posed like royal portraits, tilted dramatically, framed in soft light, and sometimes wearing a tiny lace collar. No, seriously. Historians still argue whether the pineapple portrait trend was genuine reverence or a form of horticultural trolling. But regardless, the message was clear. If you could grow a pineapple in cold, gloomy England, you weren't just rich, you were some kind of agricultural wizard. Word of this prestige traveled fast. And in places like Port Royal, known not so fondly as the wickedest city on earth, the fruit gained an even stranger cachet. You dock late afternoon, the harbor heaving with noise and rotting fish. Brothels sway like drunken sea shanties, merchants scream about textiles and gunpowder, and someone's parrot is loudly demanding a duel. You step off the gangplank holding the pineapple like it's a golden chalice. The dockmaster narrows his eyes. "That fresh?" he asks, motioning at it. You nod. "Picked 2 days ago." He whistles. "Go on through." No inspection. Just like that, The pineapple grants you smuggler's immunity. Later, in the shaded backroom of a rum distillery, where the air smells like brown sugar and secrets, you find yourself in negotiations with a man wearing an eye patch and a fur-trimmed vest. He's offering barrels of gunpowder in exchange for whatever that sweet thing is you're carrying. You hesitate. Just one slice. He agrees without blinking. And that's how you end up using the pineapple as legal tender. In this strange economy of taste and symbol, pirates begin to use the fruit not merely as food, but as soft currency. A bribe here. A peace offering there. A final gift before mutiny. Word spreads faster than a rat on a biscuit. There's a crew sailing the Spanish Main, and they've got pineapples. And it's not just you anymore. You meet a group of rival privateers, French, judging by the lace, and one of them has a tattoo of a pineapple on his forearm. For charm, he says, flexing. My wife thinks it keeps me loyal. You raise an eyebrow. Does it? He shrugs. Depends on the port. Historians still argue whether pirate pineapples were widespread or merely a few isolated cases that inflated over time, as sailor stories often do. But artifacts remain. Carved pineapples on ship bows, fragments of fruit-themed flags, even a preserved slice found in a rum jar off the coast of Martinique. The deeper you go, the more you realize the fruit's role is less about sugar and more about signal. It tells a story, hints at distant lands, exotic spoils, and a life too absurd to be respectable. One night, you're perched on the ship's railing, watching the moon glaze the waves with silver. Alphonse joins you again, silent at first. Then he murmurs, "It's odd, isn't it? A fruit becoming legend." You nod. We're not sailing for gold anymore. Just juice and reputation. He laughs softly, then adds, "Maybe they'll remember us for this. The fruit pirates." You grimace. Sounds like a children's play. But better than being remembered as scurvy-riddled thieves. You chuckle, but deep down you agree. It's not the worst legacy. And the pineapple, still surprisingly intact, rests beside the helm, catching moonlight like a relic. By now, you've developed a sixth sense for spotting a pineapple in the wild. Whether carved into a doorpost, embroidered on a waistcoat, or bobbing absurdly in a punch bowl, the fruit seems to follow you across every port in the Caribbean. It's as if someone had smuggled a taste of tropical vanity into every corner of 17th century life. You're sitting in a tavern this time, one of those creaking wooden affairs where the rum tastes like varnish and the floorboards never stop arguing with your boots. A fiddler plays something off-key in the corner, and a man at the next table is earnestly insisting that pineapples cure melancholy and flatulence, especially if you eat them upside down, he adds, with the confidence of someone who has clearly tried. To your right, an elegant woman in a crimson head wrap slices a pineapple with almost sacred precision. The blade glints. The fruit hisses. She notices your stare and offers a piece. "Tastes like the sun," she says. And the sun always costs something. She's not wrong. Pineapples in this era are practically edible gold. In London, one could rent one for display at a dinner party. Yes, rent. You'd pay a small fortune, show it off to your guests, then return it to the fruit broker before it went soft. Of course, some overzealous host would inevitably take a bite, sending the pineapple back half-munched and sparking endless passive-aggressive letters. Meanwhile, in the Caribbean, pineapples are easier to come by, but still not exactly falling off the trees. They require careful cultivation, time, and land. And for pirates, time is money and land is usually occupied by people who don't want to be evicted by men with sabers and unwashed intentions. So, rather than grow their own, most pirates simply took them, raided plantations, bribed local growers, or bought them from shady middlemen who claimed to have pineapple connections, a phrase that sounds like a tropical crime syndicate but usually just meant, "My cousin in Barbados has a garden." But something else is happening beneath the surface. You start noticing tattoos, not just Alphonse's charmingly vague marital pineapple, but more deliberate ones. A pineapple above a skull. a cross with fruit instead of thorns. Even one poor sailor who tattooed the entire fruit across his bald scalp, claiming it brought weather luck. Historians still argue whether these pineapple markings were symbolic, decorative, or just the result of too much grog and not enough supervision. But the pattern is undeniable. The fruit is more than fashion, it's a language. The code. One whisper at a time, it becomes pirate shorthand for success, spoils, and strange ambition. One moonless night, your ship anchors off Tortuga. The cove is quiet, save for the rhythmic chirp of tree frogs and the distant splash of something large enough to be worrying. You and a handful of the crew row ashore in silence, oars dipping into the black water like ghost hands. You've heard a rumor. A Spanish vessel wrecked on the far side of the island, carrying a cargo of pineapples destined for some governor's daughter's wedding. Sure enough, you find it. Tipped like a drunken whale onto the rocks, hull split open like a rotting peach. The scent of salt and bruised pineapple hangs in the air, sickly sweet and heavy. The crates are smashed. Fruit litters the shore, a squishy minefield of yellow pulp and broken dreams. And standing among the wreckage is another crew, French again, possibly the same ones from Port Royal, though it's hard to tell in the moonlight. You eye them. Nobody speaks. Then, in a gesture equal parts respect and surrender, the other captain lifts a mostly intact pineapple and places it gently on a piece of driftwood, pushing it toward you across the sand. An offering. You pick it up, nod once, and walk away. That's the moment you realize the pineapple has become a diplomacy tool. Later, back aboard, you reflect on this strange new order. In a world where cannonballs settle disputes and treasure maps are written in blood, somehow a spiky fruit has become the language of truce. Alphonse leans against the rail beside you, watching the waves. What do you think makes it so powerful? You consider. It doesn't ask questions. It just exists. Glorious, absurd, and hard to ignore. He chuckles. So, like us. You both laugh. Historians still argue whether pirate culture deliberately embraced symbols like this to distinguish themselves from naval forces, or whether they just liked shiny, awkward fruit. But the effect was the same. A visual code emerged: tattoos, flags, carvings. And at the heart of it, the pineapple reigned. By the time you reach Havana, word has spread ahead of you. The local dockmaster bows slightly at the sight of the fruit. A street vendor calls you El Capitan Piña. Children follow the crew, giggling and pretending to sword fight with hollow pineapple husks. You find it surreal and oddly comforting. The fruit has become your reputation, your brand in modern terms. It floats before you like a mascot, sweetening your legend even as your clothes rot and your boots dissolve into salt-stiffened rags. And in the lull between raids, during long sun-baked days at sea, you start hearing pineapple dreams. Crew members talk of retiring to pineapple farms, of opening inns shaped like pineapples, of writing songs, perhaps even a musical, called The Pineapple Plunder. You pretend to scoff, but secretly, you love it. Because amid the grit, rum, and gunpowder of pirate life, this silly fruit has given your floating band of misfits something unexpected, an identity. And at sea, identity can mean survival. You wake before dawn to the salty smell of the sea thick in your nostrils. The ship rocks gently as if whispering secrets of the endless ocean. Around you, the crew stirs slowly, many nursing headaches and salty regrets from the previous night's festivities, which inevitably included pineapple rum punch, an odd concoction but strangely soothing. The pineapple's presence aboard isn't just decorative or symbolic, it's practical in ways you're just beginning to understand. You wander to the ship's galley, where the cook is busy peeling and chopping the spiky fruit with surprising care. The flesh is juicy and fragrant, a sharp contrast to the usual salt pork and hardtack diet. It strikes you that this tropical gift isn't merely a luxury, it's a potential lifesaver against scurvy, the dreaded scourge of sailors everywhere. Historians still argue whether pirates prioritized fresh food for health or mere taste, But the link between vitamin C and scurvy was recognized long before the science was understood. Pineapples, while not common on all vessels, offered a tasty defense against disease. You remember tales of sailors who starved on long voyages, their gums bleeding and teeth loose, while others who managed to secure fresh fruit lived to tell the tale. The pineapple's juicy flesh could be as much a weapon as the sword. But there's more to the fruit's allure than health. Its tough exterior and spiky armor are oddly fitting for a pirate's life, unwelcoming but full of sweetness beneath. This duality doesn't escape you, especially as you watch Alphonse carefully arrange pineapple slices alongside salted fish and stale bread. Later, you join the crew on deck, where a small group is attempting to craft makeshift instruments out of empty barrels and bits of rope. One sailor, older and a bit more weathered, begins to sing a slow, lilting tune that mentions the golden crown we chase. You listen closely. The golden crown is a metaphor for the pineapple, and it's quickly becoming a sort of anthem among the crew. The song is part joke, part tribute, and part lullaby to ease the harshness of life at sea. You chuckle softly. Only pirates could turn a fruit into a rallying cry and a source of comfort. It's strangely comforting, this shared obsession. Historians still debate whether the pineapple's popularity among pirates was purely practical, symbolic, or a clever marketing ploy by Caribbean fruit traders who understood the value of hype. You lean against the mast, biting into a slice yourself. The sweetness surprises you, a gentle reminder of faraway shores, sunshine, and simpler times. As the ship sails onward, you realize the pineapple isn't just a fruit aboard this vessel. It's a touchstone, a reminder of home, health, hope, and the curious human need to find meaning in even the smallest things. The sun burns high now, casting lazy shadows over the deck where the crew lounges between duties. You catch yourself watching the pineapple crate again. It's become a silent companion on this voyage, its rough, textured skin almost like a talisman against the uncertain sea. A curious thing about pineapples is their slow growth cycle, sometimes up to 2 years before they bear fruit. Imagine the patience needed to cultivate such a prize, especially in a world that prizes speed and quick plunder. Pirates, on the other hand, aren't exactly known for patience. Their lives are marked by swift raids and fleeting fortunes. This slow fruit, with its quiet majesty, seems almost at odds with their nature. Yet, pirates are drawn to contradictions, like a moth to flame or a parrot to a bottle of rum. You remember hearing stories of pirate captains who tried to grow pineapples themselves, though most attempts ended in failure. Land was scarce and contested, and the salty air wasn't always kind to the tender plants. One crewman claimed to have nurtured a pineapple so fiercely it became a mascot for the ship, earning a place on the captain's flag until a jealous rival set fire to the garden in a fit of envy. Historians still argue whether these pineapple gardens were genuine attempts at sustainability or more symbolic gestures to assert territory and prestige. Meanwhile, the pineapple had quietly woven itself into pirate culture beyond its obvious sweetness. You notice small trinkets carved from dried pineapple cores, necklaces, buttons, even a miniature cannon crafted from hardened rind. They seem to be tokens of luck, protection, or perhaps just souvenirs from far-flung adventures. At one point, a young sailor boasts he has tattooed a pineapple on his forearm to remind him of the sunny lands he fights for, though most of the crew suspect it's just a hangover-induced decision that he's come to regret. You smile, imagining the poor fellow waking up with the fruit forever inked on his skin. That evening, the ship's cook experiments with a new recipe, pineapple grilled over coals with a sprinkle of sea salt. The scent drifts through the ship, drawing crewmates from their hammocks and filling the air with an unexpectedly homey aroma. It's a small pleasure, but on these restless seas, even the smallest comforts carry immense weight. The pineapple story is no longer just about fruit. It's about identity, survival, and the strange ways people cling to symbols of hope. You lean on the railing, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Somewhere in the fading light, the pineapple shines, not as a mere fruit, but as a beacon for those who roam the seas. Night falls softly, the ship creaking under the gentle sway of the waves. You settle in a quiet corner, the salty breeze carrying whispers of stories long past. Tonight, the pineapple takes on a new role, not just food or symbol, but currency in a world where coins are scarce and trust scarcer still. Pirates have long operated on a different set of rules, where barter and favor often replace formal money. You learn that in some pirate havens, pineapples were traded like gold bars. Their rarity and freshness made them coveted gifts, bribes, and markers of status. A pineapple given to a fellow captain could mean alliance. One offered to a port official might secure safe harbor or extra rum. You think about the tropical plantations back on distant islands, where laborers harvested these golden fruits under the blazing sun. The journey from soil to sea was long and fraught with challenges, making each pineapple on board a small miracle. Historians still argue how widespread this pineapple as currency system truly was, with some suggesting it's more myth than fact, spun from sailors' tall tales. Still, the fruit's role as a social glue is undeniable. You overhear a conversation between two pirates debating the best way to present a pineapple as a gift. Should it be whole, sliced, or even hollowed out and filled with spiced rum? The answer is less about practicality and more about ceremony, tradition, and subtle messaging. The pineapple also influenced pirate art and heraldry. You notice the ship's flag bears a faint pineapple motif woven into its fabric, a nod to prosperity and welcome, but also a sly reminder of the captain's cunning. Later, a bard aboard strums a lute softly, weaving a ballad about the fruit that buys the sea. The tune is soothing, with a slow rhythm that encourages your eyelids to flutter. It's funny to think that something so sweet could wield such power among hardened men and women of the sea. As you let the melody wash over you, the pineapple's story feels complete, not just a fruit, but a vessel of meaning, survival, and surprising kindness in a world often ruled by harshness. You drift into a calm reverie, the ship's rocking pulse lulling you further into the night. Dawn seeps quietly over the horizon, casting a pale glow on the deck as the crew stirs from their slumber. The warm pineapple scent still lingers, a reminder of last night's feast. You find yourself pondering the fruit's long journey from the New World to the high seas, and the tangled web of trade routes that brought it here. The 17th century was an era of sprawling maritime empires and emerging global connections. Pineapples, native to South America, traveled through complex networks, from indigenous farmers to European explorers, Caribbean planters, and finally pirate ships like this one. Each step added layers to the fruit's mystique and value. You remember reading that pineapples were so prized in Europe they were often rented out for lavish parties, more as a status symbol than a snack. Imagine a pineapple displayed proudly on a nobleman's table, admired more for its exotic rarity than its flavor. On pirate ships, however, it was both symbol and sustenance, a unique blend of practicality and prestige. Historians still argue about how much pirates truly influenced these trade networks versus simply capitalizing on existing routes. Some believe pirates acted more like opportunistic middlemen, while others credit them with shaping early global commerce in unexpected ways. As you wander the deck, you see crates labeled with faded Spanish and Dutch markings, remnants of colonial rivalry and commerce. These crates, filled with pineapples and other goods, represent the ebb and flow of power across oceans. You can almost hear the distant rumble of colonial ambitions in the creaking timbers. A younger crew member approaches, proudly showing you a crude map marked with pineapple-growing regions and pirate havens. He grins, confessing he's dreamed of starting his own pineapple plantation one day, a quiet rebellion against the violent life of plunder. You smile, reminded that even among pirates, dreams of peace and prosperity persist beneath the swagger. Later, you catch the ship's navigator plotting a course using the stars and a half-faded chart. Pineapple-producing islands are plotted carefully, not just for food, but for political advantage and safe anchorage. As the day warms, you savor the idea that this humble fruit links disparate worlds: farmers, sailors, nobles, and outlaws, woven together in the tapestry of the 17th century. The afternoon sun beats down gently as you stroll past the ship's galley, where the cook is busy experimenting with yet another pineapple-inspired dish. The sweet and tangy aroma mixes with the salty sea air, a curious comfort amid the harshness of pirate life. It's funny how such a small fruit can offer a brief escape from endless rationed hardtack and salted meat. You learn that pineapples were more than a snack. They played a crucial role in pirate nutrition, especially in preventing scurvy. Vitamin C was a rare treasure on long voyages, and pineapple's fresh juice provided a much-needed remedy. Of course, how much pirates understood about vitamins is debatable. They mostly just knew eating pineapples made them feel better. Historians still argue whether pirates intentionally sought out pineapples for health or simply enjoyed them because they tasted good, probably a bit of both. The fruit's rarity made it a prized morale booster, a sweet luxury amidst the grim realities of sea life. A quirky bit of pirate lore tells of a captain who reportedly hung a pineapple from the mast to signal safe waters, believing it would ward off illness and bad luck. Whether superstition or subtle signaling, the pineapple's symbolism grew beyond mere fruit. Back in the galley, you watch as the cook crafts a pineapple stew, mixing in dried herbs and seaweed scavenged from the shore. The crew gathers eagerly, spoons scraping bowls with gratitude. Small rituals like these remind you that pirate life, though wild, held moments of quiet humanity. You overhear a sailor joking that pineapples are the Navy's secret weapon, eliciting a chuckle from nearby mates. Humor, like pineapple, becomes a lifeline. Later, as the ship drifts toward an island rumored to grow pineapples wild, you reflect on how this fruit has become woven into the very fabric of the crew's existence, a blend of necessity, superstition, and delight. You settle into your hammock, pineapple-scented breeze teasing your senses, and feel the gentle pull of sleep approaching. The evening air cools as you lean against the ship's railing, watching the waves sparkle with fading sunlight. Your thoughts drift to the curious rituals pirates performed involving pineapples, some practical, some downright whimsical. You catch a few crew members gathered around a barrel, playing a game involving pineapples that seems to mix chance with a splash of superstition. This game, it turns out, was a way to settle disputes or decide watches without violence. A rare and gentle use for something so treasured. The pineapple, once a symbol of hospitality on land, became a token of fairness and shared luck on the sea. It's endearing to think of these rough men and women, hardened by life's chaos, bonding over something so sweet and simple. Historians still argue whether these pineapple rituals originated with pirates themselves or were borrowed from Caribbean island cultures, where the fruit held deep significance. What's clear is that the pineapple became more than sustenance. It turned into a shared language, a way of expressing trust and community amid the lawlessness. You notice how the crew's attitudes toward pineapples vary. Some treat them with reverence, others with playful irreverence. One burly pirate carves a crude face into a pineapple, dubbing it Captain Sweet Tooth, before placing it at the helm as a good luck charm. The juxtaposition of fierce life and fruit-carving humor feels oddly comforting. Nearby, the ship's chronicler scribbles notes, capturing these moments with an almost affectionate tone, aware they're witnessing traditions that might soon fade with the changing tides of history. As night deepens, the laughter around the pineapple game fades, replaced by the gentle hum of the ocean and the soft breathing of sleeping sailors. The pineapple story, rich with flavor and folklore, nestles into your thoughts, inviting a slow, sweet surrender to rest. You close your eyes, the faint scent of carved fruit lingering like a secret lullaby. A gentle dawn breaks, casting a soft golden glow over the ship's worn timbers and the restless sea beyond. You awaken to the quiet clinking of glass bottles being passed carefully from hand to hand in the dim light of the galley. The ship's alchemist, a curious figure with wire-rimmed spectacles perched precariously on his nose and a collection of odd herbs tucked into his belt, is busy mixing a pineapple-based tonic. This peculiar brew is meant to boost energy, soothe common ailments, and perhaps even ward off the dreaded scurvy that lurks on long voyages. You watch with mild amusement and interest as he carefully adds exotic spices, crushed cloves, cinnamon bark, and a hint of ginger, into the bubbling mixture, all the while muttering to himself about the mysterious powers hidden within the tropical fruit. This concoction, though far from the modern energy drinks or vitamin supplements we know today, reflects an early form of maritime alchemy, a blend of folk medicine, trial and error, and a dash of hope. Pineapple's natural enzymes and acids were believed to aid digestion and speed healing, making it a favored ingredient in these rudimentary remedies. In a world where the line between science and superstition was blurred, every fruit, herb, and potion held potential. Historians still debate just how effective such remedies really were, given the limited medical knowledge of the time. Some suggest these tonics were mostly placebo, a comforting ritual that helped crew morale, while others credit them with genuine health benefits, especially the vitamin C content that fought scurvy. It's likely a bit of both, much like many pirate superstitions that combined practical wisdom with hopeful fancy. You notice the alchemist's experiments are met with a mix of skepticism, amusement, and hopeful curiosity by the crew. Weather-beaten sailors who've seen their share of rough seas eagerly sample the brews despite uncertain effects, sometimes wincing, sometimes laughing, but always appreciating the small ritual that breaks the monotony. The pineapple tonic becomes a symbol of the pirates' resourcefulness, their knack for blending old-world wisdom and new-world discoveries into something uniquely their own. Nearby, in a hushed conversation by the rail, you overhear tales about how pineapples were used in local island ceremonies. Some islanders believed the fruit held spiritual properties, a gift from the gods to ensure good fortune and protection on the seas. This adds a layer of mysticism to the fruit's already rich lore, weaving natural wonder with human belief in a tapestry as intricate as the ship's rigging. You realize the pineapple's journey from sacred symbol to pirate staple is a story of adaptation and survival. Like the pirates themselves, outlaws, explorers, and survivors, it evolved across cultures, climates, and centuries. Its significance changed with each hand that held it, each story told beneath starry skies. As the morning sun climbs higher, casting sparkling reflections on the restless waves, you feel a gentle contentment settle over you. The rhythmic creak of the ship, the salty breeze carrying hints of pineapple and spice, and the whispered tales of far-off islands all mingle into a soothing balm for your restless mind. It's a moment suspended between past and present, where history breathes softly through the simplest of fruits. You lean back, eyes half closed, and let the ship's gentle sway and the pineapple's sweet aroma lull you into a calm reverie, ready for the next tale the sea will whisper. The sun climbs steadily over the horizon, spilling warm light across the creaking wooden planks beneath your feet. You settle comfortably into the steady rhythm of the ship's daily routine, the soft slap of waves against the hull, the occasional call of a seabird, and the low murmur of voices busy with preparations. Today isn't just another day at sea, it's a rare and special occasion, one marked with hope and celebration. The crew is preparing a feast, one centered around the prized pineapple, a fruit that has transformed from a mere luxury into a symbol of survival, fortune, and camaraderie among these ocean wanderers. The pineapple's journey from exotic curiosity to the centerpiece of pirate festivities is a tale woven with intrigue and cultural exchange. Originally native to the tropical Americas, pineapples were prized by European explorers for their sweet flavor and unusual appearance, so unlike the fruits and vegetables back home that they quickly became status symbols. To possess a pineapple was to hold a tangible piece of the New World's mystery and bounty. Pirates, ever the opportunists, saw the fruit as more than just food. It became a symbol of victory, a trophy to flaunt after successful raids or long, grueling voyages. Adorning the ship's dining table with pineapples was a silent boast. We have conquered the seas, we have survived the storms, and we hold the sweetest treasures. Historians still argue about how widespread this tradition actually was. Some scholars suggest that the pineapple's symbolic role in pirate culture was limited to a handful of flamboyant crews who enjoyed the theatricality of their image, captains with a taste for the dramatic, perhaps, or writers of tall tales eager to spice up their narratives. Others believe the fruit's presence was more common, especially among pirates who spent long stretches in the Caribbean, where pineapples grew plentifully on the islands they frequented. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, shaded by the colorful fog of myth and memory. As you observe the scene, the crew's mood is light and jovial. Pirates exchange jokes and laughter as they pass around chunks of fresh pineapple, the juicy sweetness cutting through the usual monotony of hardtack, salted meat, and stale biscuits. The aroma of the fruit mingles with the salty sea air, invoking distant memories of sun-drenched islands, shaded groves, and simpler pleasures found far from the chaos of piracy. One of the younger sailors, with a knack for carving, has fashioned a tiny pineapple boat, a miniature replica of their own weathered vessel. The crew cheers at the cleverness of the gesture, raising their pieces of fruit in a toast to ingenuity and survival. Nearby, a grizzled old sailor leans back against the railing, his eyes distant as he recounts a favorite tale. According to legend, somewhere on a forgotten island lies a hidden treasure buried beneath a grove of pineapple trees, guarded by riddles and shadows. Some dismiss it as mere fanciful storytelling, a sailor's yarn to pass the time, while others listen with rapt attention, their eyes shining with the hope of discovery. This blending of fact, folklore, and wishful thinking is typical of pirate life, a mix that makes even the smallest things seem grand and full of possibility. The feast itself is a quiet celebration of resilience. The pineapple, once a symbol of exotic luxury, now represents community and hope. In a world where danger lurks at every wave and trust is a rare commodity, sharing the sweet fruit is an act of solidarity. It is a reminder that amid storms and hardship, moments of joy can be found, and sometimes even cultivated, with patience and care. As the sun dips lower and the golden light softens into dusk, the laughter and chatter gradually fade. The taste of pineapple lingers on your tongue, a gentle sweetness that promises new stories, new journeys, and the enduring human spirit that navigates both. The celebration slips quietly into the calm embrace of night, leaving you wrapped in the warmth of shared history and the soothing rhythm of the sea. The dawn breaks over the restless sea as you find yourself drawn to the subtle ways pirates incorporated pineapples into their daily lives beyond feasts. It's not just about eating the fruit, it's about what the pineapple came to represent on long voyages when boredom, fear, and uncertainty could weigh heavily on even the most hardened sailors. You watch as the ship's carpenter carefully carves intricate pineapple motifs into the wooden beams of the captain's quarters, a quiet celebration of victory and good fortune, but also a talisman against the unknown. These carvings weren't mere decoration. They were believed to bring luck and protection, reminding the crew of the sweet rewards awaiting them after hardship. It's fascinating to consider how a tropical fruit like the pineapple became so embedded in the culture of seafaring marauders. Beyond its culinary appeal, the pineapple's tough exterior and sweet, juicy heart made it a natural metaphor for the pirate's life, rough and dangerous on the outside, but with moments of unexpected pleasure and community within. Some ships even used actual pineapples as a form of nonverbal communication when anchored near foreign ports. Displaying one outside the captain's cabin could signal hospitality and the desire for peaceful trade. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread practice or confined to specific trading hubs, but the symbolism remains powerful. You notice the crew's lighthearted banter as they joke about pineapple superstitions, teasing one another about the fruit's supposed magical properties. One older pirate claims the pineapple warded off sea monsters, a charming notion, though probably more hopeful than factual. Still, the idea captures the imagination, and as the wind tousles your hair, you can't help but wonder what other superstitions floated through these crews' minds beneath the roaring waves. Amid the scent of salt and citrus, The daily grind aboard ship is softened by these little rituals, these small celebrations of life's sweetness amid uncertainty. The pineapple becomes a shared symbol, a talisman, and sometimes a secret code, weaving together stories of conquest, camaraderie, and hope that resonate beneath the roar of the ocean. In these moments, surrounded by rough hands and weathered faces, you glimpse a softer side of piracy, one defined not just by plunder, but by human connection and the quiet desire to find comfort, however fleeting, in the vast loneliness of the sea. The ocean stretches endlessly as you lean over the ship's railing, watching the waves curl and crash with a soothing, hypnotic rhythm. It's hard to imagine that the very same sea that offers this calm also conceals countless dangers and secrets. Among those secrets, the pineapple held an unexpected place in pirate medicine of all things. You might chuckle at the idea of pirates acting like early pharmacists, but the juicy fruit was believed to have healing properties far beyond its deliciousness. Pirates often suffered from scurvy, a debilitating illness caused by a lack of vitamin C, and while they didn't know about vitamins as we do, they noticed that fresh fruits like pineapples could stave off the worst symptoms. Doctors aboard pirate ships were a curious breed, often barbersurgeons who doubled as morale boosters. They experimented with whatever nature provided, and pineapples were prized for their juice, which was sometimes applied to wounds or consumed to improve digestion. The bromelain enzyme in pineapple actually does have anti-inflammatory effects, so this wasn't just folklore. Still, historians still argue whether pirates deliberately sought out pineapples for medical use or simply enjoyed them for their taste and rarity, with healing properties being a lucky coincidence. You watch a young crew member carefully peeling a pineapple, the fruit's rough, spiky skin crackling under his knife. It reminds you of a story whispered among sailors. Some believed that rubbing pineapple juice on the skin would protect them from sunburn and even insect bites. While there's little scientific evidence for this, it's easy to see why such beliefs took root among men spending endless days under a harsh tropical sun, battling not just enemy ships but the elements themselves. The pineapple's role in pirate life was a curious blend of practicality and superstition. It served as food, medicine, symbol, and sometimes magic talisman. Amid the salty air and the creak of rigging, you feel a deep sense of connection to these ancient mariners, humans navigating unknown waters with a mix of bravery, hope, and a touch of whimsy. The pineapple, in all its prickly glory, is a quiet reminder that even in the roughest lives, small joys and practical wisdom endured. The sun dips low, casting a warm, golden glow over the creaking deck as you settle into the rhythm of the ship's slow sway. You start to notice how pineapples appeared in the more surprising corners of pirate society, beyond just food and medicine, stretching into the realm of trade and economics. Pineapples were incredibly rare and expensive back in Europe, so pirates who managed to bring them home could fetch a small fortune, making the fruit a prized commodity. You can almost hear the bustling market chatter as merchants haggle over these exotic treasures, which carried an aura of luxury and exoticism that few other goods could match. It's curious how the pineapple symbolized wealth and status in European culture, a far cry from the gritty, rough-and-tumble pirate life. Displaying a pineapple at a feast or party was like flashing a designer handbag today, an unmistakable sign of prestige. Some grand estates even used carved pineapple motifs in architecture and furniture, a subtle nod to the owner's worldliness and taste. Pirates, knowingly or not, were part of this flow of luxury goods from the New World to the Old, playing a key role in the complex economic networks of the 17th century. Historians still argue whether pirates intentionally targeted pineapples as a high-value trade item or if their obsession stemmed more from personal fascination and superstition. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. Pineapples were a delicious, practical source of nutrition on long voyages and also a symbol loaded with meaning. You can imagine a pirate captain grinning as he hoists a crate full of ripe pineapples, knowing he's holding not just food, but a key to social power back home. The economic side of pineapple trading shows the surprising intersections between pirate raids and global commerce. Pirates were more than just thieves. They were inadvertent players in early capitalism, smuggling goods that reshaped markets and tastes across continents. As twilight deepens, you feel a sense of awe at how a single fruit could ripple through so many facets of history, binding together adventure, survival, and commerce in a complex, delicious knot. Nightfall blankets the ship, and the soft creaking of wood and the whisper of waves become your lullaby. In this quiet, your thoughts drift to the ways pineapples found their place not just on ships or markets, but at the heart of pirate hospitality rituals. You imagine the scene. A weary crew returns from a long, grueling expedition, and the captain presents a ripe pineapple to the group. This simple act was a gesture of welcome and goodwill, a way to foster camaraderie and boost morale. Pineapples weren't just food, they were tokens of friendship and trust, precious gifts in a world where suspicion and betrayal lurked behind every shadow. In port towns, pirates would sometimes host gatherings where pineapples were the centerpiece, signaling that guests were welcome to share in bounty and stories alike. These events blended the harshness of pirate life with moments of genuine warmth and connection. Some pirates even carved pineapples into centerpieces, turning the fruit into whimsical sculptures that sparked laughter and conversation. It's easy to picture the glow of lanterns reflecting off pineapple skins, mixing with the murmur of sea shanties and the clink of mugs. Historians still argue whether these hospitality rituals were widespread pirate customs or isolated to certain crews and ports. Either way, the pineapple's role as a social symbol is undeniable, adding a layer of humanity to the often romanticized, yet brutal, pirate image. You might think pirates were all about plunder and violence, but here, in these tender moments, they reveal a surprising softness, a longing for community and celebration amid the chaos. The pineapple's place in pirate hospitality reminds you that even the roughest lives are marked by rituals that soothe and connect. As you let the gentle sway of the ship lull you deeper into relaxation, you carry with you the image of a pineapple passed from hand to hand, a small beacon of kindness in the wide, wild ocean. The gentle rocking of the ship matches the rhythm of your breathing as you settle deeper into the story's embrace. You begin to consider how pineapples, beyond their practical and social uses, also entered the mysterious world of pirate symbolism and superstition. Pirates, like sailors everywhere, were a superstitious lot, always wary of bad omens and eager to harness good luck. The pineapple, with its spiky crown and sweet flesh, became a symbol of protection and safe passage. Some believed that hanging a pineapple near the ship's entrance would ward off evil spirits and calm stormy seas, as if the fruit itself could hold the restless ocean at bay. You picture a pirate captain in the dim light of his quarters, carefully carving a small wooden pineapple to hang above the ship's door, his weathered fingers tracing the intricate patterns of the fruit's prickly skin. Maybe it's a gesture born of superstition, maybe of hope, but either way, it's a comforting ritual in a world where certainty is scarce. This tiny symbol could represent a prayer for safe travels, a charm to protect the crew, or even a quiet rebellion against the harshness of fate. The pineapple's exotic appearance lent itself well to these mystical associations, standing out like a beacon of hope amid the endless ocean. In some cases, pineapples were carved or painted onto flags and figureheads, serving as talismans to guide ships safely through perilous waters. Imagine a pirate ship cutting through fog and mist, its figurehead crowned with a gilded pineapple glinting faintly in the moonlight, promising safe harbor to those on board. The pineapple's spikes resemble a crown, which perhaps made it seem regal or divine to superstitious sailors. Historians still argue whether these superstitions were common among pirates or more localized folklore tied to specific regions or crews. Some suggest that the pineapple symbolism may have even blended with indigenous beliefs encountered in the Caribbean and South America, creating a unique hybrid mythology. Whether widespread or niche, the pineapple's magical reputation adds an enchanting layer to its practical value, weaving together the physical and spiritual worlds in a way that only the open sea could inspire. The line between superstition and survival blurred in pirate culture, where hope and fear sailed side by side. As you imagine the salty breeze carrying whispers of old legends and the creak of timbers beneath your fingers, The pineapple feels less like just a fruit and more like a silent guardian of the high seas. It's a reminder that even in the darkest moments, a little hope and a bit of sweetness can go a long way toward keeping spirits afloat. You might even find yourself wondering if, on some level, the pineapple's role was less about superstition and more about giving pirates something tangible to believe in when everything else felt out of their control. You let your eyes drift shut for a moment, imagining that gentle sea air mixed with the faint, tropical scent of pineapple, the comforting fragrance of resilience and optimism carried on the wind. The ocean is vast and unpredictable, but as long as the pineapple holds its place in the pirate's story, there is a touch of sweetness anchoring even the roughest voyage. The ship creaks softly under your feet as the night deepens, and you settle into the comfort of the story's gentle sway. You now find yourself drawn to the surprisingly practical side of the pineapple obsession among 17th-century pirates, its role as a valuable commodity in trade and survival. While pirates are often painted as reckless rogues living only for plunder and rum, many were pragmatic opportunists who understood the importance of fresh provisions, especially fruit, to stave off disease. Pineapples, with their thick, tough skin protecting a juicy interior, were not just luxury items but vital sources of vitamin C, a defense against the dreaded scurvy. Imagine the scene at a bustling Caribbean port, where pirate crews eagerly exchange goods. Pineapples, grown in the warm soil of islands like Jamaica and Barbados, are a sought-after prize, prized not only for their sweetness but for their life-saving qualities. They could last longer than other fruits on a voyage, making them an ideal item to carry aboard ships where fresh produce was scarce. You might picture a pirate bartering a stolen barrel of spices for a crate of ripe pineapples, knowing that these golden fruits could keep his crew healthier on the dangerous journey ahead. The pineapple's versatility extended beyond just eating it raw. Pirates learned to preserve the fruit by drying or fermenting it, creating preserves or even a form of early pineapple beer to enjoy during long nights at sea. This practice may sound quaint today, but in a time when fresh food was a luxury and illness a constant threat, such innovations were priceless. Some ship surgeons began recommending pineapple juice as a remedy to improve sailors' health, though historians still argue whether this advice was widely followed or mostly anecdotal. It's fascinating to consider that this tropical fruit might have been one of the earliest natural remedies used by seafarers, blending practical nutrition with a touch of folk medicine. You also recall that the pineapple's tough exterior made it a symbol of endurance and resilience, qualities that every pirate had to embody. Just as the fruit spikes protected the sweet interior, pirates needed to guard their own crew and treasures fiercely. It's a charming irony that a fruit so delicate inside became emblematic of strength and survival for such fierce ocean dwellers. You imagine the captain's cabin filled with jars of preserved pineapple and maps marked with hidden coves where fresh supplies could be restocked, each item carrying the promise of life and hope. Historians continue to debate how central pineapples really were to pirate diets versus being more of a symbolic luxury or a rare treat. Some suggest that pirates' pineapple obsession might be overstated in popular culture, while others point to ship logs and merchant records that reveal surprisingly frequent mentions of the fruit. Either way, the practical and symbolic roles of the pineapple intertwine, offering a delicious glimpse into pirate life beyond the clichés of swords and treasure chests. You breathe in the imagined scent of ripe pineapple mingled with salt air, feeling a strange comfort in this unexpected alliance between pirates and their favored fruit. It's a reminder that even the wildest lives depend on small, sweet details, and sometimes, survival depends on the humblest things. The ship's wooden boards creak beneath your feet, the soft rustle of the sails above blending with the distant call of seabirds as you drift further into the story. Now you turn to the curious role pineapples played in pirate hospitality and status, how these spiky fruits became tokens of welcome and social signals in the often rough-and-tumble pirate world. Pirates, despite their fierce reputations, lived within a complex social order where generosity and etiquette could mean the difference between allies and enemies. Imagine stepping ashore at a pirate haven, Maybe a hidden cove or a bustling port like Port Royal, where the local captain's quarters are adorned not with gold and jewels, but with freshly harvested pineapples. Presenting a pineapple to guests was more than just offering a snack. It was a sign of respect, wealth, and good fortune. The fruit's rarity made it a prized gift, something that said, "You are welcome here, and you are valued." The pineapple's unique appearance, almost regal with its crown of leaves, symbolized hospitality in a way that words alone could not express. You picture a pirate captain carefully setting down a polished wooden table, placing a gleaming pineapple in the center as his crew and visitors gather around. It's a moment of camaraderie, where the fruit is shared slowly and deliberately, the sweet flesh savored as stories are exchanged under a warm Caribbean sun. In a world where trust was scarce and alliances fragile, this ritual had a powerful meaning. Interestingly, the pineapple's symbolism of hospitality had deep roots, stretching far beyond the Caribbean. The fruit had long been regarded as a welcome emblem in European aristocratic circles, appearing in architecture and decor as a sign of generosity. Pirates, many of whom had European origins or had spent time in colonial ports, may have adopted and adapted this symbolism to their own customs. Historians still argue whether the pineapple's hospitality role was widespread among pirates or primarily limited to certain leaders and communities. Another quirky tidbit you find charming is that pineapples sometimes appeared on pirate flags, not as a symbol of terror or intimidation, but as a friendly gesture or inside joke among crews. You might imagine a pirate ship flying a flag emblazoned with a pineapple, signaling friendly approach to nearby vessels, a cheeky way of saying, "We're here for a good time, not a fight." It's a contrast to the fearsome skull and crossbones we usually associate with piracy, showing a lighter side to pirate culture. As you listen to the gentle creaking of the ship and feel the warm sea breeze, the pineapple emerges not just as a fruit or a survival tool, but as a bridge between rough seas and human connection. It's a symbol that softens the harshness of pirate life, a sweet reminder that even in the wildest places, kindness and hospitality find a way. Your boots scuff against the packed earth of a colonial market as the story continues. You're surrounded by noise, spice-scented air, and crates of tropical produce. But your eyes are drawn, as they would have been in the 1600s, to a solitary pineapple sitting on a velvet cushion. Tonight, you learn how pineapples transcended utility among pirates and colonists alike, rising to near religious status as a status symbol that traveled across oceans, passed between captains and governors, and whispered promises of wealth and civility. Picture a colonial governor in Jamaica receiving a freshly harvested pineapple from a pirate ally. The fruit isn't just a gift, it's a message. In an era where refrigeration doesn't exist, and pineapples bruise at the lightest insult, the very survival of the fruit during a sea journey is a testament to logistical prowess. Gifting one is saying, "Look how powerful I am. I can get this halfway across the world and still make it look pretty." It's like rolling up to a diplomatic meeting in a spotless white carriage, pure flex. Pirates quickly picked up on this language. Want to impress a local official? Drop off a pineapple. Want to smooth over some loot gone missing awkwardness? Pineapple. Need to assure a new port town that your crew isn't there to burn everything down? Pineapple. It was the 17th century equivalent of sending flowers, if flowers could pay bribes and secure trade deals. Some pirates even established semi-formal, treaty fruit exchanges with small port authorities and island governors. Historians still argue whether these arrangements were mostly symbolic or occasionally binding agreements, a way of creating informal truces using exotic produce. One famous anecdote suggests that Bartholomew Sharp, an English pirate known for alternating between brutal raids and weirdly charming negotiations, once sent a pair of pineapples and a bolt of Chinese silk to a Spanish colonial mayor, successfully buying his crew 3 days safe harbor. Now, zoom in on the colonial elites themselves. In the homes of the wealthy, pineapples often weren't eaten at all. They were paraded like jewels, displayed on silver platters or mounted atop dining room centerpieces to dazzle guests. And here's the weirdest part. In London, you could rent a pineapple. That's right, rent it. Merchants would charge customers to borrow a perfectly shaped pineapple for dinner parties, only to whisk it away afterward to another display. You weren't supposed to eat it. You were supposed to be seen with it. This reverence traveled to the Caribbean, where pirate captains, many of whom fancied themselves more gentlemen than brigand, adopted this same swagger. On the deck of your ship, a pineapple wasn't just food. It was a symbol. It stood for victory, access, and a foot in both worlds, the wild, freebooting oceans and the polished ballrooms of imperial society. You lean back now, watching the twilight gather over a seaside town, where the soft golden glow of lanterns flickers against the colonial buildings. Somewhere nearby, a pirate captain toasts with a goblet of sugarcane rum and a plate of pineapple slices beside him. The fruit catches the light, casting tiny golden sparkles. Everyone in the room knows what it means. He's no mere ruffian. He's someone who belongs. The waves lap gently against the hull as you sway slightly in a hammock stretched between two masts. The stars above you blink lazily, and there's a breeze heavy with salt, citrus, and, if you're lucky, a whisper of sweet pineapple. The obsession wasn't just about showing off. As the 17th century trudged on, pirates began seeing pineapples as more than mere fruit or even a status symbol. To many, they became something oddly spiritual, almost talismanic. You wake one morning to find a pineapple tied above the ship's galley door, dangling from a string like a ship's charm. It's not for eating. It's for luck. Some captains swore that keeping a whole pineapple aboard ensured calm winds and gentle seas. Others rubbed slices of the fruit on the mast before departure, hoping it would keep rot and storm spirits at bay. A few even took to carving crude pineapple shapes into the figurehead's base, as if Poseidon himself had a fondness for tropical fruit. It sounds ridiculous now, but not much more than rubbing garlic on wounds or using powdered toad for headaches, both of which were considered completely reasonable in the 1600s. And when you consider that sailors of the time feared everything from ghost ships to sea serpents, a fruit-based good luck charm doesn't feel so outlandish. In fact, it was downright practical. At the very least, a ripe pineapple meant that land wasn't far behind. Now take a moment to imagine how this belief evolved. Pirates, by nature, were a deeply superstitious bunch. Most had been tossed out of rigid navies or merchant companies and now followed their own codes, fluid, flexible, and full of odd traditions. On some vessels, pineapples were given their own mini-shelf in the captain's quarters. On others, no pineapple could be cut open until the first successful raid of the voyage, turning the fruit into a celebratory token, almost like a holy relic. Historians still debate whether these pineapple-based rituals had roots in Afro-Caribbean belief systems, maritime folk magic, or just the rum-fueled imaginations of bored men adrift for months. Some accounts mention crew members whispering prayers into the skin of a pineapple before battle. Others claim that placing one on the prow overnight would help you dream of your destination's location, like an edible compass for the subconscious. Then there were the pineapple duels. No, they didn't joust with fruit, though that image is now stuck in your head. Instead, some disputes among pirate crews, particularly those over stolen goods or romantic slights, were settled with short, ritualized combat judged by who could cut the cleanest slice from a pineapple while blindfolded. It was silly, but it gave them a sense of order. You'd be amazed how much social cohesion a juicy fruit could provide. But don't assume pirates were just playing with their food. At times, they wielded pineapples like propaganda. When they took over a town or ship, they would sometimes leave behind a pineapple instead of a flag. A symbol, a calling card, a strangely wholesome signature. It said, "We were here, we were bold, and we could afford to leave tropical treasure behind." It's like slapping a sticker on a car you've just stolen, but with more vitamin C. And as the century came to a close, the pineapple remained one of the few pirate habits that trickled upward. Naval officers began copying the trend. Colonial governors started planting small pineapple gardens at official residences. Even the British Admiralty was rumored to have had a pineapple day in the mess hall, though that may have just been sailors pulling your leg. Tonight, you imagine it again. A ragged pirate in a sun-bleached shirt, cradling a pineapple like a relic, placing it gently on a polished table in Havana or Port Royal. Around him, officials murmur. Rum is poured. The future of that evening, maybe even the outcome of a skirmish, rests on the scent of sugar and citrus carried in from the sea. The sun is low now, casting long, slanting rays across the deck, turning the worn wood golden and soft. Somewhere in the galley, a pot clangs lazily, and a crew member hums a tune with no real rhythm. You're leaning on the railing, looking out at a horizon painted in soft pastels, lavender, peach, and the warm blush of a day that's just about done. You've come a long way from the first pineapple you saw dangling above a tavern door. Now, it's part of your life at sea, stitched into your routines, beliefs, and even your dreams. As the 1600s wind down and the golden age of piracy reaches its twilight, pineapples remain oddly enduring. While gunpowder, tactics, and naval blockades changed everything else, the fruit still sits proudly on supply lists and banquet tables. In some ways, it outlasts the pirates themselves. In retirement, yes, some pirates do retire. You find them buying small plots of land in Jamaica, the Bahamas, or even back in Cornwall. And almost without fail, they try to grow pineapples. Never mind that most of them are terrible farmers. The act of tending to that golden fruit, of watching something so strange and spiky grow from the soil, becomes a quiet ritual. A reminder of hot nights, sea spray, and the glittering thrill of freedom that only a life aboard a barely seaworthy ship ever gave them. You visit one such ex-pirate in your wandering, a leathery old man missing several fingers and most of his teeth. He has one pineapple plant, just one, in a cracked clay pot outside his window. He tells you, between sips of watered-down rum, that it's never fruited once, but he waters it daily anyway. When you ask why, he simply shrugs and says, "Lucky." Historians still debate whether this pineapple obsession was a cultural quirk, a deep-seated longing for sweetness in a life full of salt, or simply a brilliant, unintentional branding exercise. But for pirates, it was always more than that. The pineapple was the past, the promise, and the prize. Even now, in some corners of the Caribbean, you'll find locals who believe leaving a pineapple slice near the shore can call forth the memory of a pirate ship, just for a moment. A fleeting glimmer of sails and laughter before the tide pulls it all away again. Maybe it's folklore. Maybe it's wishful thinking. But maybe, just maybe, it's true. As your voyage nears its end, you return once more to the scent, the feel, the strange nobility of this spiky fruit. It's not the sword or the flag or even the treasure that defines your story. It's the pineapple. Always the pineapple. And so, under a fading moon and with the waves whispering a lullaby in sea foam, you smile, bite gently into the memory of something sweet, and close your eyes. Now your hammock sways ever so slightly, just enough to remind you that the ship, your story, is still gently moving. The creak of the timbers is a lullaby in its own right, a soft groan of age and journey, long miles behind and endless sea ahead. The stars are bright tonight, scattered like breadcrumbs for dreamers, and the breeze has cooled just enough to brush against your skin like memory itself. You're not gripping a sword or counting gold. You're not squinting through a spyglass or plotting the next raid. You're resting. You've earned that. All the salt and sun, the storms and still waters, it's brought you here. To this moment. To a kind of peace. And that pineapple? It's sitting nearby, not as a trophy, not even as luck anymore. It's a symbol. Of sweetness amidst hardship. Of strangeness embraced. Of something beautiful in a world that didn't always make sense. So breathe a little deeper now. Let the waves take the weight of your thoughts. Let your eyelids grow heavy. The ship will carry you. The sea will hold you. And the story, well, the story can wait until morning. Sleep gently now. You're safe, adrift, and, just this once, completely still.